More serious news for you now. New developments breaking moments ago on our top story. The Washington Post reported last night that Fox News chief Washington correspondent James Rosen was targeted by the Department of Justice. The DOJ suggesting Mr. Rosen was part of a criminal conspiracy in order to get clearance to read his email, see his phone records, and track his movements. Moments ago, Republican Senator Marco Rubio issued a statement saying he is, quote, concerned by reports the Obama administration targeted a Fox News reporter for possible criminal prosecution for doing what appears to be normal news gathering protected by the First Amendment. Joining me now, Brit Hume, our Fox News senior political analyst, and Lise Wheel is also here to answer a couple of legal questions for us. She's a Fox News contributor, a Fox News legal analyst, and a former federal prosecutor. Brit, I saw you on with Martha earlier, and this is exactly the angle that you had raised, the one that Marco Rubio just raised, which is it's not unusual to see the DOJ interested when something relating to national security gets leaked to a reporter. What is unusual is to go into court and suggest to the court that that reporter is somehow a criminal.
Well, and that's exactly what happened here. An FBI agent filed with the court an affidavit, which is the basis of this story. We all now have copies of it. It's 36 pages long, and it describes the activity of the person suspected of being the leaker, who is, in fact, is a case been brought against him, and it describes the activity of our colleague. We've now learned he's blacked out in some of these references, but it's James Rosen, our colleague here at Fire Senior, our senior chief Washington correspondent. And Megyn, what's fascinating is the list of things that are cited that he did allegedly that are in furtherance of this conspiracy. For example, the reporter asked, solicited, and encouraged Mr. Kim to disclose sensitive United States internal documents and intelligence information about the foreign country in question. Oh, boy. The reporter did so by employing flattery and playing to Mr. Kim's vanity and ego. Oh, no. Much like an intelligence officer would run a clandestine intelligence service, the report instructed Mr. Kim on a covert communications plan. In other words, they both use different email accounts than they normally use. They employed aliases. And then they're citing things that James Rosen said at one point that they think are particularly troublesome. What I'm interested in, as you might expect, is breaking news ahead of my competitors. I want to report authoritatively and ahead of my competitors on new initiatives or shifts in U.S. policy, events on the ground, what intelligence is picking up, etc. If that's a crime, I don't know what's left of the protections afforded by the First Amendment. If all that can be cited as being in furtherance of a criminal conspiracy.
Just look at him, Brit. Rosen, he's got criminal written all over him. When you were the managing editor down at Fox News Washington, you would have had him in your office so fast and say, news gathering, trying to beat your competitors. What has come over you, James?
We did a thorough background check on him, Megyn, and he was clean. All of this, of course, was to do what we now know they did do, which was the thing that's most disturbing about this is not the fact that they tracked his movements by using the State Department badge. That's information in their possession. They presumably went and looked at it. And there's all this stuff they did to find out what the alleged source of the information was doing. That's perfectly within their purview. But they went into court to get I earlier said it was a subpoena. It was a search warrant for the emails. They wanted to get it from Google because it was a Gmail account. And they didn't want Rosen to find out about it. So they went and asked the judge to do two things, and that was to grant the search warrant and also to tell Google to keep quiet about it.
Exactly.
So we didn't find out about it, but in the course of doing that, they alleged that this activity, which we call cultivating sources and reporting the news, was criminal.
And they suggested that that he had broken the law and that he was, in receiving this information, at the very least, this is quoting from the affidavit, either as an aider, abettor, and or co-conspirator of interest to the court. And a court signed off on this. But Lise, I mentioned before, it's so much easier in court to get the court to sign off on what you want.
Of course.
When there's no lawyer representing the other side.
There's no lawyer there representing the other side. And there's not just the First Amendment, Megyn. This is so troubling because there's a Privacy Protection Act that protects journalists for exactly this kind of thing. And the only exception is the probable cause exception if someone is actually involved in an ongoing crime. What was the crime here, Megyn? What was the crime? That he was receiving information? That was the crime? That's all they can come up with? And meanwhile, of course, no criminal charges charges had been levied. So, I mean, this is just so beyond troubling. It's just this coming right after the heels of the AP investigation, which we know that they did not go through DOJ procedure. They did not get subpoenas signed off on. They did not contact the AP. They did not contact the media source. They're supposed to negotiate with the media source, whether it's Fox News or AP. They've done none of that.
Right. And what we heard from Eric Holder last week was this is with the AP, the story, where they monitored, 20 reporters and over 100 phone lines, they said in total, basically, and reporters who would come in and out and use these phone lines for 2 months without advance notice this was one of the worst 2 or 3 leaks I have seen in my career. That's the reason. It was so bad. That's the reason why we didn't notify the AP. That's why we went into court on our own and got this subpoena. And now we find out a couple days later, they did it to us too. Was this one of the worst leaks ever? Wait, we're going to pick it up there right after the break and carry you guys over. So, Lisa, I want to pick it up with you on the legal front because last week what we discussed was, yes, the DOJ can get your private records without giving you notice, without giving your counsel notice, if it's a matter of national security. But how big is that exception to the rule?
It's a very, very limited exception. It's not supposed to be applied all the time willy-nilly, as it seems to have been here in the last couple of weeks, or we're just hearing about it. It's very, very limited, not exploited that often, Megan. In fact, when I was a federal prosecutor, I mean, we just rarely saw it. So to have this again and again and again, where there's really no meat to it, and you just throw that out there, national security, with no example, no real meat to it, and the proof in that is no criminal charges have been filed, Megan.
Right, and Eric Holder even last week went out and said you've got a long way to go before you can try to prosecute the press for publication of leaked material, and yet we see the FBI alleging that James committed some crime. Britt, I want to ask you about the chilling effect, the AP's been talking about this, on reporters and their sources in the wake of these revelations.
Well, of course.
No, that's for Britt.
I don't see how it could fail to have a chilling effect, Megan, if you're worried that any communication you might have with a source is going to be a matter of record for the government, that your emails to and from a source may be read by the government. This is naturally, for just simply practical reasons, chilling. One of the things you do, and it's considered within our business a sacred obligation to protect the identity of your sources. If you can't do that, or if your sources believe you can't do that, you're going to be severely hampered in your ability to get information the government doesn't want out. And one more thing, Megan. Classified information is often classified for very good reasons. It is secret and should remain so. But an awful lot of material, reams of material, are classified willy-nilly and for the sake of protecting a government from embarrassment. Reporters since time immemorial have gone after this stuff and have often plumbed it for very valuable information the public needed to know. So simply because something's classified doesn't mean it shouldn't come out.
Absolutely right. All right, Britt and Lise, thank you both.
Got it.